ado, I'm going to introduce LeVan D. Hawkins. He's an LA-based poet, essayist, and performance artist, now residing in Chicago. Both his and Sam's full bios are on the table, very impressive and extensive, so please take a look at them. He's received fellowships from the Malay Colony, the Lambda Literary Foundation, the Dorothy West and Helene Johnson Foundation, and a scholarship to the Norman Mailer Writing Colony, as well as Marble House. He has a very impressive list of places he's performed his work, and he is here currently working on his memoir, What Men Do. And he's going to tell you a little bit more about what he'll be performing tonight. So please join me in welcoming LeVan D. Hawkins.
A sharp intake of breath, her body frozen in action, eyes and ears locked on the television. Another night of the evening news. Our bodies freeze along with her. It's only natural. For 9 months, we carried her breath. Her blood is our blood. Her mood is our mood. Breath still holding until the segment is over. There are no pictures. Only alarming detail and suspects with no faces. Criminals are described as simply men. So we know they are not black. We breathe again. And we'll move uninterrupted until the morning news. This is family ritual. She carries the world on her shoulders. Each criminal act of color, another shred of evidence verifying the inherent criminality of dark pigmentation. Her life has been an active defiance of perception. Her perfection makes the case against their argument. Her anger at the wild boys with no parental direction comes from the load she carries when she works, when she walks past strangers, when she looks into her 2 sons' trusting eyes and sees police bullets, cabs passing, job discrimination. She walks in dignity every day, but never in perfect posture and never in relaxation. She carries the world on her shoulders and is always watching her step to make sure it is in alignment, yet she never stays in rhythm. Each night, the act of some stranger becomes another cross for her to carry. She knows their actions stand alone. Nevertheless, she knows interpretation of reality is in the hands of her enemies. She carries the world on her shoulders and wonders if she will ever watch the news and not take it personally. the zombies, wearing two coats of blackness, one God-blessed, the other man-made, plead quarters and hold vigil at Mr. Brown's liquor store. Others who have shared their man-made coats, plied them with homilies and history books, but no turn of phrase can replace the sensation of a 40 ounce. The zombies spook the night and appear at unattended doors. They eat our brains and mock us the way they mocked us when they made love to the choicest girls, emptied our pockets of our lunch money, cracked our heads for their amusement. We ran for cover from daily terror. Wynton Marsalis played in the background as we escaped to the world of Toni Morrison. We stayed up all night with Maya Angelou and submitted to brain transplants from Dr. King. We, the God-blessed, have heeded the words of Mayor Smith, Miss Walker, Mr. Harrison, Mother, Mama, and Aunt Florence. We shared our man-made coats, fled the living dead, and drank Chardonnay in the suburbs. Hi. The hardest part of preparing for a reading for me is deciding which of my babies to share. And tonight was a little easier because I wanted to pick poems that had themes that were similar to the excerpt that I'm going to read. And interesting enough, that first piece I performed it first in the year 2000, and the first concern that the mother has is police bullets. Tonight I'm going to read from my book that I'm still working on. It's called What Men Do, and I call it a memoir with sociological underpinnings. In this section, I am visiting my family in Robbins, Illinois, from West Hollywood, California. It's Labor Day. In Labor Day of 2004, I met my 27-year-old nephew, Chanel, for the first time. He is my brother Ernest's son. Our absence in his life was due to late discovery, denial, and neglect. Though I had always looked forward to meeting him, in his presence I altered my personality to appear tougher, the way I did when I was young and felt threatened. Chanel appeared at my mother's house the next day to visit me, and during our visit, he seemed eager to challenge the family who had neglected him. Or was he just uncomfortable and intimidated in our presence? Or was he high? One thing I know for sure, there was a lot of acting going on in that room. What men do. My Uncle Robert said y'all was spoiled and pampered, speed down the streets in y'all mini bikes. Chanel said out of nowhere, his voice full of accusation. I grinned at the memory of my brother Ernest streaking down Lawndale Avenue on his purple mini bike, something I hadn't thought about in years. I could hear the motor blasting through my grandmother's neighborhood. I could see old Mr. Wills banging on my grandmother's door complaining. Aunt Florence bought the mini bike for Ernest from Sears and Roebuck's. She was single and childless, the rare black working in the corporate accounting office of International Harvester Corporation. Ernest and I benefited immensely from her largesse. My impulse was to dismiss the mini bike. I viewed Sears as the equivalent of Walmart, and there weren't many bikes. Plural, there was just that one. But telling Chanel the mini bike was cheap and wasn't a big deal at a time when they had been rare in our village would have confirmed my brother and I were just as overindulged as he thought. Spoiled and pampered. The words didn't sound like they were from Chanel's uncle's perspective. They didn't seem the words of a man in his late 40s, recalling memories from 40 years ago. Those were Chanel's words. I was white and bougie, according to him. And his father was a successful businessman who Chanel later complained was always looking down at him like he was smelling something. I didn't bother correcting his misconception about the number of mini bikes or their cost. I looked at him and smirked, perversely hoping the thought of my brother and me as privilege made him as resentful and uncomfortable as he had made me by implying that I was white and bourgeois. It never occurred to me that if he saw his father as privileged, he saw himself as an heir deprived of his birthright. Our conversation petered out. We sat in the den enduring an uneasy silence, an easy quiet. Neither one of us prepared to put an end to it, to say we had somewhere to go, that we were tired, to say anything that would get us out of that room. I idly took one of my books off the desk and scanned a few paragraphs before a line caught my attention. What you reading? Oh, hell. The seven habits of highly effective people. I took a breath and braced myself for his derision. He leaned out of the recliner and gestured for the book. It's a good book, I told him as I reluctantly placed it in his hand. It taught me how to manage time better, get things done. I'm a readaholic. Your old man says all I did when I was little was stay in the crib and read. Guess I still do that. I got my diploma, Chanel said. I didn't study and I got it. A lot of people around me didn't. Almost everybody in our family is smart, I told Chanel. Your mother was smart. So was your sister. Why not you? Your father was like that, not studying. He skipped second grade, then later he coasted. Once, when my brother Ernest was in high school, he boasted to my mother he could be on the honor roll anytime he wanted. My mother laughed at him. Ernest had spent years doing just enough to get by. The next semester, he was on the honor roll and received a congratulatory letter from our congressman. Just that once, I asked my mother after I found a letter in a drawer. Just that once, she replied. Coasted, Chanel repeated. Yeah, that's me. I guess me and the old man finally got something in common besides the way we look. School wasn't me though, he said, returning the book. I was more interested in thugging. Your father wasn't a thug, I said. Chanel grinned at me. You probably wouldn't have wanted to know me. No, probably not. He chuckled and leaned towards me from the recliner, sending me back to my high school cafeteria. I was a 14-year-old freshman honor student who didn't fight sitting across the table from 15-year-old Rozelle Wiley, a member of the Disciples gang. Rozelle clenched my food tray and dragged it in front of him. He grabbed a piece of meat off my tray, nibbled it, then spat it on my plate. I want you to bring me your mother's gun, he said. I don't know where she keeps it. I didn't know whether my mother had a gun or not, But it was best Rozelle thinks she did. He thinks twice about robbing our house. Motherfucker, don't lie to me. I want it tomorrow. I hesitated. If there was one person I feared more than Rozelle, it was my mother. He looked around the cafeteria, then leaned into me and punched me suddenly in the face, my head jerking from the full force of bone against bone. I grabbed the edges of the table, riding the shock of the pain, unsure of where it was going to take me. I reached blindly for the napkin on the tray that I had forgotten was no longer in front of me. I needed something to wipe away the tickle and taste of blood. Rozelle followed with a quick second hit to my chest, so strong it felt like his fist had power through my rib cage. I fought to feign, searching myself to appear as normal as possible, wondering how all this looked to the others in the cafeteria. I hoped no one else had seen him hit me and prayed it would be the last time he would. Chanel's chuckle broke me out of my spell, pulled me back, pulled me out of my high school cafeteria and back into the den. I stared in his direction, fighting tears of anger, my nostril and nose quivering in rage. I got felonies for gun possession, possession of narcotics with intent to sell, Chanel said. Did some jail time, that's just the stuff I got caught doing. I forced my mind to glide over the information he shared, his life of jail, gangs, guns, and crack cocaine, silently telling myself he didn't do it, he didn't bully you, it wasn't him, he's your nephew. You don't want to know the shit I did. No, don't tell me. He's my nephew, he's my nephew, he's my nephew, he's my nephew, he's my nephew. Hey, it's all part of the past. But I walk through my old life every day. It's like walking through landmines. That's no way to live. How can I avoid it? The shit's everywhere. It's not everywhere. I snapped, oblivious to the intensity of my words, speaking in my normal voice with all the anger that I had suppressed that day in the cafeteria. There are other worlds here. A lot of people here don't do what the people you run with do. You're too busy hanging around with people just like you to see that. The shit is everywhere you go. I had become my mother, vehemently perturbed by a verbal attack against her beloved town. Can't you see this place for what it is? Yes, I can. Can you? Negative reality is not the only reality here. Chanel looked at me like I had lost my mind. I averted my eyes, turning my attention downstairs. I waited for my mother to yell upstairs and ask me if anything was wrong. I only heard murmurs from her television. I glanced at Chanel. He was still staring at me. How could I explain my outburst? Before I could speak, he nodded in agreement.